Hello from a slightly misty morning here in Monrovia, Liberia today, and thank you so much for joining me as we dig into the Bible once again to see what God may be saying to us today. I wonder if I'm the only person who's ever asked myself why I haven't got it all together yet. Right, like I'm definitely edging toward the late 30s now, and yet why is it that I still struggle in the same areas? Why does temptation still claw at me sometimes? Why do I still doubt? Surely I should be in a better place at this point in my life. Surely I should have answers to all of the questions, and I should be walking in perfect faith, free from worry and anxiety and all of those things, never messing up, never making a mistake and getting it wrong. Just me? I don't know, I think it's a fairly common question. I think it's fairly common to ask ourselves, why am I not where I want to be in my life? Why am I still in this place? Why am I still struggling? And thankfully I know that I'm not entirely on my own, because in the Bible we find that the Apostle Paul himself seemed to struggle with this kind of question. In Romans chapter 7 we read that he says, "I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do." And he goes on to say that I do not do the good I want to do. But the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. You're not alone if you've ever asked yourself these kind of questions. And you know, if the Apostle Paul didn't have it all together, what hope do we have? He, in Philippians chapter 3, explained that I press on to possess that perfection for which Christ Jesus first possessed me. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us. See, this is actually incredibly reassuring. Paul had not achieved perfection. Even after hearing Jesus speak to him audibly, even after that dramatic conversion where he went from Saul, a persecutor of believers, to Paul, an advocate for the very belief that he had tried to squash, even after writing letters to churches that would go on to become part of the Bible itself, read thousands of years later to encourage and teach us today, even then, Paul still was not perfect. Even then, he recognized that he was a work in progress, pressing on, continuing to run the race, even in those moments when he might have stumbled. You are a work in progress today. So am I. And that kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. It doesn't mean that we stop striving. It doesn't mean that we give up and say, well, I'm just going to live however I want to then, because I'm not perfect and I'll just forget the truth that I know. That's not what it means. We still strive to be like Christ. We still strive for that perfection. We keep on running. We keep pressing on, but we do it knowing that we don't need to try and run carrying this artificial weight that says that we have failed if we ever get it wrong. There's a verse that I love in Hebrews chapter 12. It says, "Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith." See, I've often read this verse and thought, well, yeah, of course we need to throw off our sin, right? That's a good thing. We need to get rid of those things that would entangle us and trip us up, those sins that hinder us from running well. But sin isn't the only thing that can weigh us down as we're running this race in our lives. Throw off everything that hinders, as well as the sin that so easily entangles. That everything may include some of those things that we do with good intentions. It may include some of those things we do with good motivation. It may be a thought that we need to be perfect, that we can't make mistakes, that we are failing if we get it wrong sometimes, if we don't do the good that we want to do all of the time. And if we believe in that thought, then every time we find ourselves missing the mark, the temptation is just to say, I can't do it anymore. I've failed again. I've messed up. And rather than continuing to run the race, we find ourselves sitting by the side of the road, feeling sorry for ourselves because we've messed up again. See, that verse doesn't say, let us run the race marked out for us perfectly, without ever faltering. It says instead, let's be conscious, let's be aware, let's be mindful of those things that would trip us up, of those things that would slow us down, and let's get rid of them. Instead of focusing on perfection, instead of focusing on never stumbling and never making a mistake, let's instead focus on Jesus. Let's keep our eyes on the one who is always there, the one who is ready to hold out his hand when we stumble, saying, come on, up you get. I am running right there beside you. I understand the temptation you're feeling right now. I understand the pain you're feeling right now. I understand the emotion you're feeling right now, and it's okay. It's okay that you've stumbled, but right now you need to get on up and keep running the race. In Philippians chapter 1, Paul kind of opens his letter to that church with these words. He says, I thank my God every time I remember you, in all my prayers for all of you. I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. The good work that Jesus has started within you is ongoing. It's not finished yet. It won't be finished until the day of Christ Jesus. And yet it is ongoing even now, even while we live in this world of temptation, this fallen world where we do make mistakes, where we're not perfect. Even in the midst of all of that, he is working in you right now at this moment. He's working in you in the circumstances that you face, in the difficult moments, in those beautiful revelations of his joy and his peace. He is at work. He is at work in giving you wisdom, in providing for your needs, in developing you into the person that you have the potential to be. He is developing perseverance in you. He is developing and growing the faith, the seed of faith that is within you. He is at work in you. See, you're not perfect, but Jesus is. You're a work in progress, but Jesus isn't. And it's Jesus who is working in us. It's Jesus who started a good work in us. And it's Jesus who has promised that he will finish it. We may make mistakes. We may fail to get it right sometimes, but the one working within us doesn't have those same failings. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't get it wrong. So when you do mess up, when you do make mistakes, when you do get it wrong, and you will, don't give up. Don't stop running the race. Yes, confess it, but then move on. Don't let that condemnation and guilt that Christ has freed you from weigh you down and stop you running the race that God has called you to run. Instead, refocus your gaze on him. Reach out for that hand that will pull you back up to your feet so that you can keep on going. Thank you so much for joining me for that thought from the Bible. I'm finding this series so exciting, this thought of who we are, who the Bible tells us that we are. It's so important for us to have that knowledge, to go back to those fundamentals and remember who Christ says we are, who God has made us to be. There's so many voices in this world that will shout you down, that will say, unless you're perfect, you're not good enough. But that is not what the Bible tells us. The Bible tells us that Jesus is doing a good work in us. It may not be finished yet, but the perfect one is perfecting us. I'll be back on Wednesday next week with another video, another thought from the Bible. So I will see you then.